Hey everyone, welcome back. And today I'm going to be doing what if Liechtenstein decides to form an empire. So, Liechtenstein is this microstate right here, and of course they can't beat an army, so they decide to use their weapons of internal. Like do some hacking or something like that. I don't know how it works, but let's just say that they might not have an army, but they are able to do some hacks into their neighboring countries. The only neighboring countries they only border is Austria and Switzerland. And which one's the most probably easy to govern is probably Switzerland. So, Switzerland start facing some internal problems. So, not only Liechtenstein takes this as an advantage, but also its neighbors takes the advantage. And then they all declare war on Switzerland. So, Liechtenstein starts moving in as fast as they can. And then eventually Italy starts to go in, France too, and then Germany, and then soon Switzerland falls. So let's look at the peace treaty. So here's the peace treaty. We see Switzerland completely obliterated by the four. And of course, the Swiss does have some Alps. I don't think that's the name. I don't know. But they do have some mountains which do make it hard to invade, but we're going to be ignoring that for right now. So, this is what Europe currently looks like now, with Germany taking the northern Swiss, France taking the western, Liechtenstein taking the eastern, and Italy taking the southern. So with this, Liechtenstein does the same thing to Austria. It's doing some internal stuff, and then, of course, once again, Germany declares war on Austria and Liechtenstein too. And Slovenia sees this, and then the Czech Republic and Slovakia sees this, and then Italy decides to stay out of it. So, while the Austrians are trying to defend their mainland over here, Liechtenstein manages to start going into the panhandle, and then soon they're stopped by the Austrians, and then soon the Slovenians start going in, and then this time the Czech Republic and Slovakia decides to unite into Czechoslovakia again, and then with their manpower together they start advancing more into Austria, soon eventually capturing Vienna, and then with the Germans coming in, Austria is now surrounded and then obliterated. So let's look at the peace treaty. So here's the peace treaty. We see that Austria got the same fate as Switzerland. So Liechtenstein took the panhandle, Slovenia got southern Austria, Germany got the northwestern Austria, and Czechoslovakia got the northern eastern part. So here's the borders, what it looks like now. And then with Liechtenstein now getting up an army, and with their new strategy, they decide to declare war on Slovenia. So then with this, we finally see that some Liechtenstein people started to go in, and then soon they get all of their claims in Austria, but then soon Slovenia manages to strike back, and then soon pushes back, and then soon they're able to advance into their own territory. But then we see that Liechtenstein starts to fund some separatist groups, and then Slovenia starts to break from the inside, making the Liechtenstein go back in and start fighting with the separatists. And then eventually Slovenia falls. So let's look at the peace treaty. Here's the peace treaty. We see full annexation of Slovenia, including their claims in Austria. So what they decide to do next is that they want more coastline. They already have the coastline right here, but it's not big enough. So they go over to Croatia and declare war. Croatia is a harder opponent since they have a bigger military, probably, but Liechtenstein manages to use their internal braking again, and then with the Croatians starting to go corrupt inside, they start taking the advantage and start invading. So then eventually Croatia is split into two. The northern part falls, and then the southern part collapses. And then since they're there, they might as well declare war on Bosnia and Herzegovina. And since there are Serbs in Bosnia, Serbia gets into the war. And with Serbia being a stronger opponent, they start liberating parts of Croatia and then start pushing back the Liechtensteins. And then they start doing their internal braking again, and then they start pushing back even more, capturing the rest of Bosnia. And then soon, they manage to get Kosovo as an ally. And then Kosovo gains full independence from Serbia and then starts going in. And then with the Serbians distracted by Kosovo, the Liechtensteins decide to go in. And then soon, Belgrade is captured, and then Serbia surrenders. So let's look at the peace treaty. Here's the peace treaty. So we see Kosovo annexing the entirety of Serbia, while Liechtenstein annexes the northern part of Serbia and annexes all of Croatia and all of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So then next, Kosovo would want some coastline, so they both declare war on Montenegro, helping Kosovo getting some coastline. And then right then and there, Montenegro falls. And then also, Montenegro gets annexed. And then soon, it's now a part of Kosovo. Now with them two having full coastline, Liechtenstein decides to look up and declares war on Hungary. And then, with the troops already bordered, they start going in, soon capturing Budapest. And then, a few weeks later, they surrender. Since they're there, Czechoslovakia. And then again, they start getting their claims in Austria. And then soon, they break into two. Slovakia surrenders. Now it's just the Czech Republic. And then them two, they also surrender as they capture Prague. So let's look at the peace treaty. So here we see the full annexation of Hungary and also Czechoslovakia. So then with this, they go over to the Benelux region, asking for their help to take over Germany. So, as of what Germany did in World War II, they accept. Now they're allies with Liechtenstein, and then they declare war on Germany. So then with this, the Benelux region's already going in. They wouldn't advance this far as the German troops are also at their border. But most of the troops are at the Liechtenstein border, so they start advancing. And with the German troops going back to the Benelux region to fight them back, they're pushed back, and then the Liechtenstein finally starts to storm in, eventually capturing their claims in Switzerland and in Austria, and then capturing Bavaria, and then capturing Frankfurt, and then connecting up with the Benelux region, and then they start pushing up towards Berlin, and then eventually Berlin is captured. And then right then and there, Liechtenstein decides to pull any betrayal and declare war on the Benelux region. And then they start going in, taking out the Netherlands, Belgium, and then Luxembourg. So let's look at the peace treaty. So here we see full annexation of Germany and in the Benelux region. So here's what it's all looking like so far. And then next, they decided to go after France. So France realizing that right here won't be able to protect them, they needed to go over to protect the Benelux region as well. So once Liechtenstein declares war, most of the troops are out of the France and Swiss border, but since Switzerland is gone, they start storming in. And they're trying to get to the Liechtenstein capital. So once it's there, and then they start storming in, since this part isn't safely guarded. It is guarded, but not too much, and then eventually Paris is captured, making this part retreat, but then that goes bad, and then they start going back. And then soon, this part falls, and then soon, they all surrender. So let's look at the peace treaty. So here's the peace treaty with France. Looks familiar. So we see the southern part of France becoming a puppet state, while the northern gets annexed by Liechtenstein. And right here, it's just the old French government. So what Liechtenstein decides to do next is that they would want to secure their eastern borders. So right there, they declare war on Poland. And then with their friends already going in, Poland is already looking to surrender. But before they could do that, Warsaw is eventually captured, and then they're forced to surrender. And then since they're there, might as well declare war on Lithuania. So Vilnius is finally captured, and then Lithuania falls. So let's look at the peace treaty. So here's the peace treaty. We see the full annexation of Lithuania and Poland. So Liechtenstein decides to send an ultimatum over to Russia. And so they want to take over Kaliningrad. Russia refused. So they declare war on Russia. And with them already taking over Kaliningrad, nothing happens, except they start sending troops in, and then eventually a landing happens in Lithuania and in Poland, and one in the German territory, another one in Germany, another one in Poland, and then they starts going in. And eventually a spearhead starts to go, and then this part captures all of Lithuania, and then they regain Kaliningrad. But then they are also able to cut the spearhead off and then try to kick back the Russians out. And then they start a liberation campaign into their own territory, and then soon the Russians are pushed back. But then with them already stabilizing Kaliningrad, they decided to go to a peace treaty. But before they do that, Belarus gets dragged in, and with the troops already stationed, they start going in. And then Minsk is captured, and then soon it's to a stalemate. And then a few years later, they decided to go to a peace treaty. So let's go ahead and look what they came up with. So here's the peace treaty. We see nothing happened to Kaliningrad, but we do see Belarus getting split into two. The west being a part of Liechtenstein, while the rest becoming Russian. So then with this, Liechtenstein decides to go in for a few more countries, and that is to go in the Balkans. So then, they declare war on Romania and Moldova. And then Bulgaria sees this, and they also declare war on them. And then North Macedonia and Greece join the war against them. And then soon Albania sees this and it gets it into the side of the Liechtenstein. And then Turkey sees this, and then they're with Greece on this one. And then let's see how it goes. So the first thing that they would do is try to secure their front line, but we see that the blue team is already on that. With North Macedonia already going in, they start to split Bulgaria and Kosovo into two. And then soon, with the front already going in, we see that Greece and Turkey starts going into Bulgaria, capturing their capital. And then soon, Bulgaria surrenders. But with the Romanians already going into the border, we see that Kosovo starts a liberation campaign into their own territory, and then eventually into Bulgaria. And then soon, Kosovo is able to cut them into two once again, and then with the Romanian troops fighting off in this region, we see their capital Bucharest is eventually captured, making Romania surrender. And then right then and there, since Moldova is all alone in this region, they also surrender. And then with that, we see Bulgaria being fully liberated, and then eventually North Macedonia surrenders, and then the Greeks sees this, and then they also surrender. And then Turkey, they decide to leave the war. So then with this, let's look at the peace treaty. So here's the peace treaty. We see that Liechtenstein annexes all of Romania and Moldova, while Kosovo annexes Albania, North Macedonia, and Bulgaria into a joint union. And then Greece becomes a puppet state, and then Turkey loses Istanbul and it becomes a puppet state with Greece. So with that happening, they decide that they would want to secure their border with Russia. So they declare war on Ukraine. And then they start advancing into Ukrainian territory, eventually capturing Odessa. And then soon they start getting the Crimean Peninsula, and then they get it. And then soon Ukraine decides to surrender. So let's look at the peace treaty. Here's the peace treaty. We see Ukraine fully split into two, one by the Ukrainian government still keeping its capital Kyiv, while the western part of Ukraine gets annexed by Liechtenstein. So with this, Liechtenstein decides to conclude their empire, and then hopefully y'all liked the video, and I'll see you on the next one.